Hey, welcome back to another video. Today it's very exciting. We're going to do our first kids jacket. So I got a request to turn an Oilers jersey into a kids puffer. So I've gone ahead already and created the pattern, and I'm going to show you exactly how to assemble the jacket today. So you can download the pattern below and then use this video to follow along and create your own jersey for your kids' favorite team. So let's get started. I'm so excited for this one. So as you can see, I've started laying out the pattern behind me. Essentially what I've gone ahead and done is gone to my local print shop. I go to Bureau en Gros because I'm in Quebec, and basically you take the single sheet file, that's one of the files that you'll receive on the digital pattern pack. So you go up to them and you ask to print at 100% scale on their wide format machines on their engineering paper in black and white. So that's what I always do, just because I offer the other pattern or printing types, but this is always the one I recommend because it's always the fastest, the easiest. You don't have to assemble the pages together, and it's just makes it that much more efficient, and it's not that hard or expensive to print that at your local print shop. So I'll go ahead and show you a few of the pieces here. So here's an example of some of your pieces. I always just put like, you know, candle holders or something just to be my paperweights. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do when you print it out is you're gonna wanna measure your 1 inch and 2 inch squares and make sure they are in fact 1 inch and 2 inches to make sure that you have printed correctly. So the other thing you're going to look out for is your sizes. So basically you just take a look at the guide and decide what size you want to make, and then you can just look for the equivalent lines on your pattern. So for example, if you want to make a small, it's those little dotted lines there. And so we go on the pattern and then we see our dotted lines here. So that is how the sizing works. Okay, so let's talk materials for a second. So everything you're going to need for this project pretty much involves the following. You're going to want at least one good pair of scissors, bonus points for having clippies like this for quick trims. Extra bonus points also for having a rotary cutter, which you'll need a cutting mat for. And this is mostly good for pockets and when you need to get through some thick layers of fabric. So you'll also need clips and pins. You can just use pins if you want, but clips are always an added bonus. They really help with the zipper part of the jacket. So what else? We're gonna need one of these nifty seam rippers. We're gonna need some sort of measuring device, whether that be a flexible ruler or a longer ruler. I use a meter stick as well. You're gonna need a zipper. I use these plastic ones just because they're a little bit lighter and they won't weigh down the jacket. And I'm also going to use 2 different types of thread, as these ones match my jersey exactly. So you're gonna wanna choose basically thread that matches your jersey exactly, and this is going to be really important for the quilting lines so that everything blends really seamlessly. And extra bonus points also for those who have a defluffer. So these ones basically just have your different layers. You just rip off and you get a clean one. And I just defluff at every stage because when you're working with batting and the materials that I use, so I always use a flannel oftentimes, and that can get really fluffy when you have the batting and the flannel touching each other. So that is a really great one as well, and a great sewing machine as well, something that you know, works quite well, that has been serviced recently. I use a Singer Heavy Duty, which I always like to recommend. It's a go-to for me. It's pretty affordable as well, but I mean, you can also use older sewing machines. I started with a Bernina, which my grandmother gave to me, or I inherited from her when she passed away, and that's really what inspired my whole journey, by the way, was really her, and I get all of my sewing skills from her for sure. So in terms of the materials, you're gonna need some batting. This is the one that I usually get. I get it at Fabricville. That's my local fabric store. But I know if you're in the States, there's Joann's. You could always just Google fabric stores near me and find one that is closest to where you live. And the other thing that you're gonna need is this nifty thin seamstress tape. You can get a pack of like 10 of them on Amazon, and that's what I'll use. Try to use a contrasting color to the color of your jersey, and you should be good to go. These are we're gonna use for the quilting lines, so that's it. And then I'm also gonna use this cozy blue flannel. I have leftovers from previous projects, so hopefully I have enough to work with for this project. We're gonna see. So I'm gonna get started cutting out my pieces. I think I'm gonna start with the flannel, but before that I'm going to cut out my pattern pieces. So the jacket today I want to make is a small, so I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting. Okay, so next we're going to cut out our pattern pieces. So I'm starting here with the back piece. I'm going to take my pins and I'm going to pin all the way around so that it's easy to cut out the shape with my scissors or my rotary cutting device. So for the back piece, I'm going to cut out two pieces, one for the lining and then one for the exterior. So one that's going to go in between the jersey and the batting layer. So I'm going to go ahead and cut two of these and I'll join you back after. Okay, so in order to not bore you entirely, I've completed cutting out all of the lining pieces. So I'm going to go through all of the pieces that I have right now. So I have 2 for the right side front. I have 2 for the left side front. I have 4 arm pieces cut out. I have 2 back pieces cut out, 2 collar pieces cut, 4 pockets, and I have 2 welt pieces cut out. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the batting pieces, and I'll tell you exactly how many to cut out of those as well. Okay, so I've just finished cutting out my batting pieces. I want to show you exactly what I've cut out. So I cut out 2 for the arm pieces, like this, because I want the arms to be a little bit more malleable, so a little thinner on the arms. It's going to be a little thicker around the chest, so I did 3 for each side, so 6 total of those. 3 for the left, 3 for the right, 2 are going to be for the front, and then 1 is going to be for the lining side. I'll show you what I mean later. Then I have 3 for the back as well, 3 for the back. And I have 2 for the welt, the pocket welts. And then finally I have 2 for the collar pieces. So that should be good for our batting, and next we're going to tackle cutting out the jersey. Okay, so I've pulled my jersey out. The first thing that we're going to want to do is take off our tag, of course, if it's a new jersey here. The second thing we're going to want to do is remove any patches that will be in the way. So I'm going to remove this one. What I'm going to do first is just lay out my pattern pieces and really get an idea of where I want it to sit on my jersey. So picture your jersey, lay it out flat, and then kind of line it up. Where I found is the best placement for me is slightly under this line, just enough so that we could sew that later, and a little bit of orange showing at the top here, and the McDavid part is at a good part of the back. Okay, so that was just under this stripe, and then for the front, I'll show you some of the challenges that we are facing with this one. So for this one, as you can see, this jersey comes with this little collar part, which isn't ideal for us. Normally we would want to try to avoid the collar pieces, but for this one, we see if we try to line it up exactly where the back was, which is the first stripe, it's going to be a little bit challenging because we have this collar piece here. So our options are either to try to remove the collar and work with the material that we have underneath, or we can try to scooch this down a bit, one more, but then we don't have some of this orange, and we can compensate that by maybe holding the pattern here and cutting around, and then maybe adding this part after, which I do sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these down. No, so I'm going to go ahead and start with seam ripping this off, and then starting to open up my jersey on the side seams here, side seams here, and I think I'm going to try to remove this collar to see if I could get a little more material to work with here so that I could get the pattern to fit where I want it to. So I'll join you back in a minute. Okay, so now that I've taken the collar off, I have a little bit more material that's opened up here, which is great. So I think I'm going to try to place it a little higher to match the back pattern. So you find your pieces, and then we're going to line it up with the center. Find a spot that you're happy with, then pin and cut. I think I'm going to start with the back actually, so that will dictate exactly how much of the orange material I'm going to include for the front pieces. So let's actually start with the back. Okay, now that we've cut our front pieces, if you want to be extra safe, you can use a soldering iron and just lightly tap it on the edge here just to prevent fraying. And I also just want to caution you, because once you heat these up, they are extremely hot. So just be careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this right on the edge and just carefully, don't leave it on for too long because it will burn a lot quicker, a lot quicker than you think. So that's pretty much all it needs, and I'm going to do the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to do the sleeves. I've cut them from the scraps of the jersey, and I'm just going to lay it in a good position. I think the main thing that you want to look for is just being in the center of these numbers here, because I think that will look the best, and then also shifting up a bit so that we can include some of this nice orange part up here. But looks like we have plenty of material to work with, so I'm going to pin this down and then cut out both sleeves. Okay, so now I've finished cutting out all of my pieces. This is the back piece, the two front pieces, which I've now soldered both sides, and then the two arm pieces, which are exactly identical, which we want. I realized I also need to cut a piece for the collar. So I have this leftover piece from the bottom of the jacket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my pattern piece, or in this case my lining, which is the same as my pattern piece, and I'm just going to place it in a location that works for me. So I think I'm going to include both these lines here just for some added detailing. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin that down and then cut that out. And I'm going to want to do the same thing also for my little welts. So you just grab whatever scrap material that you have and try to think about what would look good, and then cut out a piece for your collar and your welt. So now I'm going to make little packages with my batting and lining, and I'll show you exactly what little packages you need, and then we can start sewing the edges and then start doing our quilting lines. So I will show you that in just a sec. Alright guys, so I finally put together all of my little packages, and I'm going to show you exactly what I have here. So I have my two collar packages. This is for the lining layer, so it has one batting and one lining. I have my outer layer collar, so it has one jersey, one lining piece, and then one batting. We have our two welts, which just have the jersey, the lining, and then the batting. Same thing for the other side. I have my arm pieces for the lining jacket, just two of those on their own. Pocket pieces for them as is. We have one of the front sides, and that's just batting and lining. That's for the lining jacket, of course. Same thing for the other side, and the same thing for the back piece of the lining jacket. So just those two layers. Then we have our outer layer jacket, which I've put 2 layers of batting here, and you can choose to do just 1 layer if you want it like a little bit thinner. Potentially it could be, 2 seasons, fall and winter. This is going to be really warm sort of winter jacket. So you have the 2 layers of batting, and then you have the 1 layer of the flannel plus the jersey layer. So that's like that. And then I have one side of the front, which has the jersey layer, the flannel layer, and then 2 layers of batting. And then the same thing for the other side. Then I have my outer sleeves, which I just did the 1 layer of batting with the flannel and the jersey. So I'm going to keep that a little bit thinner than the front of the jacket, just so that there's a little bit more mobility in the arms, because we know kids like to move and wiggle around a lot. So, but we still want to keep them warm, so that's why we have the double layer on the front. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Basically what I'm gonna do now with all of those pieces, all of those little packages, I'm going to sew along the edge just to secure them. So for the outside pieces as well as the lining pieces, sew along the edge here, and that's really going to just cement our little packages together. So once we do that, then we can start our quilting lines. So I'm gonna head to the sewing machine and get going on attaching all these little packages together. So we're gonna sew at 3/8 of an inch here. Okay, so as you can see, I have sewn all the edges down on all of my pieces. You can see how it's coming together now, including the lining pieces. And next, I think I'm going to do my quilting lines. So basically you're going to take a ruler of any kind, and what I like to do is measure them, measure my quilting lines 4 inches apart. So I'm basically just going to take my outer pieces, so the back, the 2 fronts, and the sleeves, and measure them 4 inches apart. So 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, and then I'm going to add some seamstress tape to make sure the lines are straight and I have a nice guide to sew against. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'll take you along with me. Okay, so you can see how I'm basically just lining them up side by side. It's really important to make sure that your quilting lines are going to be lined up in the front together, and then as much as possible across the back as well. So next I'm going to do my arm pieces, and I'm going to make sure they're the same on both sides as well. Okay, so now that my quilting lines are already taped down, I can go ahead and sew right along these lines. And what we're going to want to do also is make sure that we stop right at the logo if you have one of these thicker logos, as it just will look a little nicer not going all the way through it, in my opinion. If you want to do it, you can, but I always kind of just backstitch, sew, and then backstitch to lock it in, and then I'll trim it out. And then for these ones, obviously you go straight across. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. The only thing I guess to pay attention to is if your quilting lines sort of hit a different color on the jersey, like here, you're going to want to use, in this case, I'll use like a white thread. Here I'll use blue, and make sure everything matches. So for this one as well, I'll stop here and then sew here and then sew there, just skipping the numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and start sewing these quilting lines, and yeah, you can join me along. As you can see, I finished all of these really gorgeous quilting lines on all of my pieces, so we're good to go to the next step. Okay, so what I've gone ahead and done is attached my little logo, Intro to Soul. This is my website, by the way, where you can purchase the pattern or a custom if you don't want to make it yourself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach the lining pieces together. So I'm going to take my back piece, and I think first I'm going to iron these out, get all these wrinkles out. Then I'm going to attach them right sides facing, shoulder to shoulder, like this. So I'm basically going to pin along here and then sew. So I'm going to iron these first, then pin and okay, so next what we're going to do is attach the collar. So now that we have our shoulders attached, we can go ahead and grab our collar piece and start to, one second, I'm just going to trim this. Don't forget to trim your loose threads along the way. So we're going to attach our collar piece. So if it's like this, we're going to do right sides facing as usual. And we're basically just going to start here on the front and then pin all the way along to the other side. So I'm going to make sure it's lined up edge to edge. Take my pins. And then just start pinning all the way around. You may have to work it in some areas if it's not fitting 100%. See how I'm going backwards now a bit now because I'm working it in. Perfectly normal. Have a little excess there that you need to work in. Okay, now that that collar is in, this is how it looks before. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew along that edge there, right over where we pinned, and we're going to attach the collar in place. Okay, now that the collar is attached, you can pass a second time if you like, which I think I might, just to make sure it's extra secure. Then we can attach the arms. Okay, so now we're going to attach our arms, and it's going to be essentially the same thing. We're going to take our arm pieces. So if this is your jacket, you're going to attach it starting here and then all the way to the other side. So you're just going to work your way around. So take these two corners like that, and then you're going to start to pin all the way around. Again, same thing, you're probably going to have to ease it in and adjust once you've pinned in place. That is all part of the process. There we go, I'm just pinning along the edge. Make sure it meets the end, so when you have about this much left, try to make sure the ends are perfectly aligned in there. So you're gonna have a little bit of a lip there, but just work it in. You got a little more lip there, so work it in, keep going back until it's all completely flat. Remember, this is totally normal and part of the process, so don't stress. A little bit more. Work it in. See how it's getting less and less of a lip as you go backwards. Okay, so once that is all pinned up, then we can go along and sew that edge, and that should give us our first sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that down and then do the other side. So now that it's all sewed down, I'm going to remove all my pins, and then I'll probably pass a second time just to make sure it's really secure. Okay, so now that both sleeves are attached, which is great, we can now take our jacket and kind of put it together like this. And then we're gonna want to attach the sleeves here and then down the side. So we're gonna do that for both sides. I'm going to basically take the sleeves, align the edges, and then pin all the way down to the armpit area and then along the sides as well. And then once I'm pinned along the edge, I'm gonna sew one straight line from the wrist to the armpit all the way down to the bottom of the side of the jacket. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pinning, and I'll join you back in a sec. Okay, so now that I've pinned the bottom of the sleeve and the side of the jacket, I've done this on both sides now. I'm gonna sew along this edge, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so now it's complete. We've finished our lining jacket, which is going to go on the inside of the jacket, and now we can basically repeat the same process with the outer layer. So you're going to take your back piece and you're going to take your front pieces, here we go, and we're going to repeat the exact same process. So I'm going to start shoulder to shoulder, first pinning, then sewing. Then we're going to attach our collar, then our sleeves, and we'll be good to go. So what might be easier for attaching some of the thicker layers together is going to be using sewing clips. So I like to use these clips, and this is going to help a lot. It's a lot easier than the pins, because sometimes the pins can sort of get lost in the batting, and then you don't want to lose a pin in your jacket. So next, I think what we're going to do is take our welts, and we're going to create our little welts. So basically, I've chosen to have this little stripe on mine. So what I'm going to do is fold it right sides facing, like so. And you can press to start, and then we're going to pin, and we're just going to sew these two edges together now, and then we'll be able to flip it inside out and then close it up. So I think what I'm going to do first is fold both of these right sides facing and then iron, and then I'm going to be able to sew a lot easier. So let's go to the iron. Great, so once these two sides are sewn together, you're going to flip inside out, and then we're going to sew this edge down. And then we can go to the iron again and press down. So iron down flat and then close up and sew along that edge. Okay, these are all done. Boom. Now we can attach them to our front pieces. Okay, so before we put the outer pieces together, we're gonna do our pockets. And this is totally optional. You can make the jacket without pockets if you so desire. But basically you're gonna want to pull out your front pattern pieces again. And if you look at the front, you'll see these markings here, and this is going to be the placement of your pocket, and you can feel free to adjust it a little bit depending on the jersey that you have. You may want to just bring it down or to the side slightly just to put it in a better position if there's like a stripe or a logo in the way. So I'm going to line this up and take a look at my little guide here to see where I should place my pocket, kind of feel for it, and then find a good position. Once you find a good position that you like, you're going to make sure that the side of the welt that you want facing up is facing down. So always right side's facing when we sew. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to pin it down in place once we find a good placement. And then we'll sew along this edge here. Sew it down probably twice to make sure it's secure. And then that will be the first step for our pocket. You can check to see you've had it placed down the right way by just simply holding down the seam, flipping over, and really getting a feel for how your pocket is going to sit. Okay, makes sense. So now I'm going to pin this down, and then I'll also pin down the other side. So I'll take this side as well, and sometimes I will place them like so and just kind of lay the welts on top of each other and then pin just to make sure they're in the same place. You're going to want to make sure that they are symmetrical on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these down in place now, and then we'll sew these down. Okay, so now I've pinned my two welts down in my ideal spot, and a good way to check that it's exactly the same on both sides is you measure, the corners to the edge. For this one it's going to be 3 inches, this one's 4. Make sure it's the same on the other side. So 4, 3, perfect, and then measure from the bottom. This one is 3, this one's 3, perfect. So all of my measurements are lining up the same on both sides. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew right along this seam here and on the other side as well. So I'm going to pass by twice just to make sure it's extra secure. So you may want to just do a couple of hand cranks to get started if you're struggling to get through some of that thicker fabric, but you should be able to once you've sort of started the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these down, and then we can move on to the next step of the pockets. So this is how it should look. If you fold it over, you can see that it's looking really great. And I'm going to pass by a second time to secure it, and then do the other side. So now we are going to do our actual pockets. So we're going to take our pocket pieces, and essentially you're going to want to lay it flat. I've already pinned this one down here, but here's your welt, and we're going to want to pin this just over. It's going to be about 2 fingers past your welt on either side, very technical measurement, and about the same past your welt here as well. So about 2 inches, or sorry, 2 centimeters, a little less than an inch here, and then also it's going to be coming over the edge. See how it's the edge of the welt is there? You're going to want to have that little flap, and we're going to want to basically place our presser foot right at the edge of the welt, and we're going to sew this down. So we're going to want to have a little bit of that extra flap left over, and make sure obviously it's going the right way. So take a look at the direction that this is facing right now. So it's going to go over your welt. Again, right side's facing down, and check the direction of your little blobby thing. Make sure it's not pointing upwards, it's pointing downwards. All those directional decisions are going to be really important. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that down so you can take a look at how I'm doing that. So you're going to want to position your needle right at the top of the welt. See, this is your top of your welt here. You can feel it with your fingers where it is. Then we're not going to want to go past it because we're going to want to tuck our pocket in afterwards. So once you find the top of your welt and it is lined perfectly with your needle, put your presser foot down, and then you're going to want to stop on the other side where the welt ends on the other side as well. So should have that extra flap, and it should stop and end right at your welt. So that's looking good. So next we're going to take our other next we're going to take our other pocket piece and feel for the side that you want. I like the fluffier side, so remember, right side's facing. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to line them up, both those pocket edges, and we're going to place them together. So I'm going to pinch, I'm going to pinch, 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 okay, making sure they're lined up edge to edge. And now I'm going to pin them together, like so. So we're going to want to make sure it's pinned together like that. I don't know if you can see properly. And now we're going to want to sew the other side down. So we're going to basically put our presser foot right against this edge here. And again, we're going to want to start and end where the welt does. So if you want, you can put a little pin at the top and at the bottom to remind yourself where to stop, because you're not going to want to sew past those points. Really important. So now I'm going to sew that down and be good to go. So that is, both sides are sewn down, and now you should have a little canal there, which is great because we're gonna take our rotary knife, and if you don't have a rotary knife, obviously you can use scissors, but we're gonna cut right there, which is a little stressful, but we got this. So I'm gonna go get my rotary knife and I'll show you how we cut this. So if you have one of these cutting mats, that is going to be your best bet, but you absolutely don't need it. You can totally just use scissors here. And we're going to want to cut basically about 1 centimeter away from our seams. So if we want, we can fold these down so we know. I'm going to fold this down like this, pin it, fold this side down, and pin. And this way we'll know where to stop. So we're not going to want to go past the top of our seam. We're going to actually want to stop 1 centimeter before, and then we'll cut little triangles at the top and the bottom, and I'll show you what I mean. Pin this down. Pin this down. And if you want, you can pin these sides down just to help you with visibility. Okay, we're going to take our rotary cutter, start from the middle to be safe. Okay, we've cut our slit. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut our little triangles like I talked about. So all you have to do is like that. Like that. See what I mean by our little triangles there? That's going to be your pocket opening. And of course, you're going to want to do the same thing on the other side. Great. Now you can basically unpin this, and we're going to pass through to the other side. Just push your pocket through the hole. Tug it on through. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put them together. And we're going to pin along this edge all the way, including here, the ends. the ends, and then we're gonna sew along this edge. And if you might have known from my last videos, I've talked about this, but if you place your pins this way instead of horizontally, you can sew right over them. So that's the advantage. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to sew these two edges down, and I think I'm gonna use a white thread here so it blends really seamlessly. I might add just a touch of blue here. I'm just particular like that, but yeah, basically you can just iron flat and then sew that down. And the one thing to make sure when you're sewing that down is that your pocket is out of the way so that you don't sew your pocket to the welt on the other side. So basically when you're sewing, just kind of tuck it to the side and then you can just sew. So that's great. We have one pocket done. It's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to do the other one. Okay, so now that we have both of our pockets done, which is super exciting. I absolutely love when I get to this stage because it feels like the end is near. So basically what we're gonna do next is the same step that we did for the lining jacket. So we're gonna attach our shoulders first. So we're gonna place them straight down on our back piece, and we're gonna go right sides facing, shoulder to shoulder, like so, and we're gonna pin and then sew along the tops of the shoulders. So I'm gonna go and pin that now, then sew it together. Okay, so I've actually gone ahead and attached the shoulders together with these sewing clips. So sometimes it's a little easier to use these clips instead of pins because with the thicker fabric, sometimes the pins can get lost. And it's just a little easier with the thicker layers, but you can still use pins. I've done it both ways and they work fine, but just a preference thing. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sew these shoulders together right along this edge here. Okay, so now that the shoulder pieces are attached, I'm gonna go ahead and attach the collar. I think I want the orange side to be face down, closest to this orange color. So I'm going to clip this down, right sides facing, starting at the corners of the front pieces, and I'm gonna work my way around clipping the collar to the top of the jacket. All right, now that our collar is pinned down, I'm gonna go ahead and sew along this edge and probably again pass by twice to make sure it's extra secure. And yeah, then we can move on to the arms after this. Okay, now that our collar is attached, that is great. can see our jacket coming together. Now I'm going to attach the arms. Okay, so now we're going to attach our sleeves. And again, remember, so we're going to attach them obviously on this armhole here. So we're going to do right sides facing again, of course. And we're going to take the corner of our armhole and right sides facing, place the corner of the top of the sleeve, and we're going to clip this. Okay, so I've attached the sleeve to the sleeve opening, and now we're going to sew. Okay, so I've attached the arm. We can start to flip it inside out or right side in, however you want to put it. We can start to see the jacket coming together now. So next I basically need to attach the other arm, and we're going to do it the exact same way. Right sides facing, clip, and then sew on the other armhole. So I'm going to go do that now, and I'll meet you back here for the next part. Okay, so now that we have sewn both shoulders on, we can see our jacket really coming together now. So next we need to basically complete this outer jacket. So we're going to close up the seams. So basically what you're going to want to do is flip your jacket inside out, like so. Then place your arm pieces together, like this. Pinch it at the armpit, and we're going to clip along here, clip along the side of the jacket, and then we're going to do one long seam along there, and we're going to do the same for the other side. So basically what we're doing is we're just closing up our jacket here. So we're taking the sleeve, we're going to do edge to edge, and we're basically just going to sew along that edge and then along the sleeve, and we're going to do that on both sides. So I'm going to go do that now. Okay, so now that we've finished our outer jacket, sewing up the sleeves and the sides of the jacket, we can now take our lining jacket and we're going to start to attach them together. So what we're going to want to do is start with the collar, and we're going to basically sew the top of both collars together. So again, right sides facing, you're going to take your lining collar and line it up with your outside collar, and you're basically just going to place them together. So these are your two collars, placing them together, and then we're going to pin. So these are your two jackets. We're going to pin these top collars together. So pin or clip as usual. Now we're going to sew. Perfect. So now it should look like this. So I'm going to pass by a second time And then next we can basically attach the bottom of the jacket. So you're going to want to attach both bottoms of the jacket. So basically you're going to take the bottom, the outer layer, the bottom of the lining, place together, and all the way across, we're going to pin and sew that one. So I'm going to go ahead and do another one on the collar, and then I'm going to pin and sew the bottom. Okay, so next what we're going to want to do is basically keep our jacket inside out. So we can see now everything is sewn top to bottom. Now we have our sleeves that are loose, and we're going to want to connect those together. So essentially the way that I like to explain this, have the front sides facing like this, sleeves on either side, and then take your sleeves from the same side here and pretend like it's one long tube. So we're going to connect them like that. And as we connect them, I'm going to take my lining sleeve and I'm going to create like a little lip, just like that. And I'm going to go and place it in my outer sleeve. So I'm going to be placing, make sure nothing's twisted also. And we're going to be placing the seams together first. And we can take our clips and we're basically just going to go around and clip the sleeves together. So keep turning it in like that so that we can have them edge to edge, right sides facing. So once your sleeves are clipped together, it's going to look like this. If I zoom in closer, you can see they're touching edge to edge, like so. And now I'm basically just going to sew along where we clipped. Okay, so that's all sewn down. Now I'm going to just flip it inside out real quick just to test, to make sure we've done it the right way. Beautiful. So if you flip it inside out, it should look approximately like this, which is great. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Okay, so I've sewn both sides now, and I'm going to flip it inside out. Boom, okay. Now both sleeves are done. Beautiful. And the last step is to do the zipper. So I'm gonna go grab my zipper and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so the next step is to apply our zipper. Basically the first step is to just take your zipper and place the right side down. So where this little handle is, you can just go ahead and place it right down on your jacket. And you're gonna wanna take the edge so that they are edge to edge. Like so. Basically, we're gonna wanna clip that down on one side. And basically, you're gonna want to make sure that your zipper part is at the top. So where the lining meets the outer jacket, we'll clip there. Then basically, we'll work our way down and clip all the way to the bottom. So it's okay to have this little plastic piece, plastic bottom part of the zipper hanging. So what I'm doing now is I'm just working my way back up and easing it in. I think that's pretty good. Kind of liking where that's sitting. So now that that is all clipped down on the one side, we're going to attach our zipper foot on our machine. This is your zipper foot. So we're going to attach that so that we can get as close as possible. And we have a little bit more space. And I think that's good. So I'm going to start sewing this down, and then I'll show you how to line it up with the other side. And before we start sewing, I'm just going to take this little flap that's left over at the top, and I'm just going to sew it down as I'm sewing. So just fold it down just so that we can tuck it in after. So next, what you're going to want to do is make sure the zipper is lined up on the other side. So what I do is I'll take my zipper that's sewn onto the one side, and I'll start by aligning sort of the parts that matter. So making sure the stripes are connected. So you can move your lining layer out of the way. We're just going to be working with the top layer. So I'm going to be basically going underneath, placing together, and then clipping underneath right here. And then doing that all the way up until we're happy with the placement. And don't forget to do a couple of test zips before you sew to make sure it is lined up exactly. Okay, so I have clipped down my zipper, and now I'm going to do some test zips to make sure everything is aligned pretty nicely. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to very carefully take this side to your sewing machine, and you're going to sew this down in exactly the position that you clipped. So now once you've sewn it down, you can do a test zip to make sure it still does in fact line up. That's pretty good. Secure both sides, and then we can attach the lining to the zipper. Okay, so the last step is to hand sew. You're gonna need a sewing needle and take about an arm's length worth of thread and tie a little double knot in the back, leaving about maybe an inch or centimeter or two at the end. Then you basically, what you're going to want to do is take the bottom of your zipper with your lining material and then just fold them in, fold it over like so, like that. And if you want, you can clip or pin just to make it easier. See what I'm doing? I'm folding about that much, and then I'm just going to clip. Then what we're going to do is an invisible stitch here. I'm going to start on this side. Just going to go through bottom. And we're going to pull that through. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go horizontal. There. Take about that much. Pull through. Use your hand to prevent any knots in your thread. Go through to the other side. And then basically just repeat this process until you're done. So this, I'll show you one more time. Through. Place your hand, pull, then go horizontal on your lining only, about that much. And put your hand back so you can avoid any knots. And just continue that all the way up. So I'm gonna keep going and I'll show you the finished product after. For the top, we're gonna do the same thing. So just tuck it in, boom, like that, and then just sew all the way up. All right, we finished the jacket. As you can see, it's looking so good. The zipper is all hand sewn and it's looking really, really clean. I'll turn it around and show you the other side. Boom. So good. Just for comparison, I wanted to show you the kids jacket versus adult jacket. And you can always check out the adult puffer jacket video. I will link it below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.